forgiveness, the kindness of the Savior, the hope of nations, the Savior.
This is Chariot.
Good evening to you if you are in Ghana, and then likewise, wherever you are listening to us from, we send you greetings from Chariot TV according to your time. Once again, we say we are much grateful and glad for having you with us on TEXTALK here on Chariot TV. We continue with our studies that we began from the previous week. We started taking a look into the Intertestamental Period. Na yɛhyia mu no nso yɛnya yɛn brother Shadrach Opon and brother Jonathan Mensa Bonsu ɛwɔ yɛn ntam a wɔboa yɛn ɛwɔ yɛn adesua a yɛsua ɛde fa the Bible no ɛho. Na yɛduru the Intertestamental Period. Asɛbakafoɔ no na wɔtwetwe mu no ɔmo kasa ɛde fa ɛyɛ ahenni ahodoɔ ne tumi ahodoɔ bi a Israel ɛkɔhyɛɛ wɔn ase Abrana yawo intertestamental period. And even before that, no, they link these happenings into prophecy that were made in the Old Testament concerning the occurrence of this, particularly from the book of Daniel. From the book of Daniel, the various prophecies, no, Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7 was mentioned, Daniel chapter 8 was also mentioned. And finally, they gave us some historical background concerning the Medo-Persian and then the Greek rule over the people of Israel and even over the entire world of that date. And then so yawo asempakafo no mienu ewo yentem brother Shadrach and brother Jonathan. What I can me mama kwaba e de ba TEXTALK so ibio.
Just minia.
Yeah.
Na megidi se nyankopon adom ye nyina ye ho ye.
Yeah, ye ho ye.
Ye papa.
Ye da erade ase. And also so ye toya addition so ewo our studies into the Bible. Na yesua ade na ahwe the authorship of the various books of the Old Testament mo. Na while before we begin with the authorship of the various books of the New Testament, no, say in between these two testaments, no, series of events, prophecies that were fulfilled. Said the Yankopon in my Israel etna esi edify. Na what you no yenyamo ewe yentem more guided and through these studies. A lot of things were actually mentioned. Me pese ene yebeto addition so e free for last week you drew. Now, brother Jonathan, last week you quoted from a certain book, Maccabees, you mentioned that, and then out of that, na Otrey and maybe could see the book of Daniel more. We want to hear more about that. Mijidi say addition you find see ewo and yadi addition berry na ochitwem you be person ka beto so e dey free ho amaye.
Medasi mefa akonya esu nso na madahwefo nyina se omogibre. In fact the esu anwa de no intertestamental period na ye kai ahwefo se nimabu apamda fufuru mu na obeti ase yi a na ejina onimdia wo apamda sa brimu ene nioma bi a wo se ye hye nso so ya hye ase a ye in fact ye call Daniel homa no yehunu se ahenie be 9 a Daniel hye ho kom se beba a nipa ahenie no ya kasafa Babylon ho ya kasafa the Medes and the Persian ho sabre ya ye dey call it we na ye kasa about the Grecian Empire Alexander the Great ediwa split ya bibisha say the Maccabean revolt and the Maccabean revolt happened during the time of the Grecian Empire, particularly Seleucus nemkrofo a obedi ade Syria no na omuni eni nyame nkrofo ho ka nyame nkrofo Israel for no omo time wo mo na particularly Antiochus of Epiphanes one of the leaders in the Seleucids sa ahenie no a omo tena na omo di Egypt no saa nkɔfoɔ no baako a ne yɛfɛ no Antiochus Epiphanes ana Jewfoɔ no ɛfrɛ no the madman na n'adwene ne sɛ ɔno na ɔyɛ the enlightened one. Nti yɛhyɛ ase a metwe wadwene gyina so sɛ during that time no they were his purpose nyinaa ne sɛ na ɔpɛ sɛ ɔma Jewfoɔ no ɔfa swine and not only swine ɔmo mma no nyae ɔmo ncircumcise ɔmo mba ɔmo desecrate the temple, they should defile the Sabbath and all those things. Ana metwe wadwene gyina so sɛ there was one priest a ne yɛfɛ no Mattathias ana wakɔtena some few miles away from Jerusalem a ne yɛfɛ no Modin saa kuro no hɔ no ɔteɛ na or 5 boys na metwe wadwene gyina so sɛ saa berɛ no ɔwɔ hɔ a na ɔsom ne nyame na letter ne baayɛ sɛ they should offer swine in the security temple no na ɔmo nyɛ nneɛma ɔsɛ ɔmo yɛ wampene sɛ ɔbɛyɛ. Nti last time na metwe wadwene gyina so wɔ First Maccabees chapter 2 verse number 23 ma menkan verse number 23 no from this book. I say as he finished this saying abra owura no okura message or they ewidi ama king no ewie no or say a certain Jew came forward in the sight of all to offer the sacrifice on the altar in Modin according to the king's order. Metwe gyina say Mattathias say ono onye he won't do that ne man so omonye but a certain Jew ya monidi 24 okay. Say when Mattathias saw him he was filled with zeal and his heart moved and just was aroused. He sprang forth and killed him before the altar. At the same time also killed the messenger of the king who was forcing him to sacrifice, and he tore down the altar. So what happened was that ono one no who say Jew ni bi say the ohene no ka say omo fa swine ne nyoma altar no so no ono yes obeye no okun akwa no so and also kun the king's messenger no so. And na me twa wadwene that started what we call the Maccabean revolt. The entire the Maccabean revolt and say Mattathias na ne maye 5 or John or Simon or Judas or Jonathan and or Eliezer. But Judas na ne din ba ko efe ne Maccabees. Judas Maccabees. Nti Judas Maccabees no ana egada ne ho a o hya ase say or the ntokwane ade ekutia Antiochus Epiphanes no niema ne nhyehyɛ a ɔyɛ ne sɛ ne osi persecute Jews no or gada nkɔfoɔ no abo ma no matimi ako atia nhyehyɛ a akwa no ɛyɛ ɛwɔ saa akwa no so. Now that is the beginning of that war, the Maccabean revolt no that ntokwane hyɛ and it happened for about 3 years. Ntokwa. The first group of people are omo edi two more omo be join Maccabees ema ni ekun santokwa no was the yeye nim wo mo see from Pharisee. You see in the New Testament you read Pharisees. But the first time you go to the Old Testament, you don't see the word Pharisee, you don't see synagogue, you don't see Sadducees, you don't see all those things in there. I mean, in Bible class time, we don't pay attention to these things. Now, see, we don't ask questions. Where did these Pharisees came from?
Okay.
You might not have any clue about it because in the Old Testament, there's nothing like Pharisees. Most is not a Pharisee, not a Pharisee. You can't tell. You don't know because there was nothing like Pharisees back then in the Old Testament. But so soon, maybe I make kind baby show. Chapter 2 now make kind show now verse number 42. No, or say then we were joined by a group of Hasidims, valiant Israelites, all of them devout to the law, to follow the law. Hasidims is kasano. The Hebrew kasa Hasidim. Hasidim no pious people are who want to follow the law strictly. They are the people are developing kakran from Pharisee for Hasidim, the separate ones. Essence. You see, group Jew for essence. Essence are not spoken much in the New Testament. You see, but Pharisees are spoken much in the New Testament. That is their origin. The man back this whole issue. There was an issue. Tama sorry. No. Issue started in Judea and Patemu say Obi a military leader bia na amano priest, high priest. But you know, according to the law of Moses, it was Levitical priesthood. Levi for na so for na high priest. and I am more massive for. We don't just give Aaron as if for the mom hype. We don't just give the priestly duty to anybody. But it go do pempen so be a military leader be any man hype yaman so for and so for no so for sacrifice. These Hasidems or Pharisees, started saying that no, Mama Yenti, they call it Mama Yenti our military leaders from our religious leaders. It was during those times. They started arguing that let's separate our military leaders from our priestly leaders. And they call themselves the separated ones or the Hasidim. And I say from the Pharisees. Sadducees were the more liberal one, the more elite, the political class people. They were the people who said, oh, no, we can give it to anyone. Ubia John Hackins, Akwabia, man, they just give it to anybody. Ubia military the bian near their man. So the first people to support the Maccabean revolt, a minimum group of people that supported was the people we today call the Pharisees. They started that. But okuwanim kakra na usua dia the Maccabean otoa so kakra for a space of 3 years utimi clean the temple in a sense of got rid of Antiochus Epiphanes. Na o clean nyoma na hyehyɛ ya akwande ye ne otan o de tan Jew for na dade nyina e de nyina e baawiye. Na o de baawiye on 25th December 167 BC. 25th December 167 BC. And Jew for heard the wire and they gave a feast in his name. And I'm afraid that feast, the feast of dedication. Let me show you why you need to know these things. Next, I want to maybe I say, John chapter 10. John chapter 10 in the Bible. John 10. Verse number 22.
John chapter 10, verse number 22.
Mm-hmm.
Now it was the feast of dedication in Jerusalem, and it was winter.
The feast of dedication. I mean, we don't have feast of dedication in the Old Testament. Feast of dedication. You see, in the Old Testament, we have Pentecost. There were 3 main principal feasts. The 4th one was the Feast of Purim during Esther time. But this feast of dedication was because of Maccabees. Maccabees, the 25th December 165 BC. Maccabees to make clean the temple, got rid of Antiochus of Epiphanes. Then they dedicated that day to him as a feast, and they called it Feast of Dedication. So we don't just read the New Testament lightly. There are questions that we need to answer, and those questions come from a good understanding of the intertestamental period. One of them is this feast. Another thing is Pharisees, Sadducees, and those people we call them synagogue. All these things came during the time of the intertestamental period.
May I say, Brother Shadrach. So on this point, Joe are raising, can we find out, as at this point, my Maccabees for a defeat Epiphany Nitumi no more Israel, did Israel become an independent nation, or more than they do more so?
Okay.
Did tell me some question when you say you've emphatically stated, say, after Israel and your view after their return or we can see at this point what's actually happening. Israel do also, and I say a religious leaders the BD Israel saying is it's at this point in time.
Me that say, yo, we are soon na ahemfo akese ena didi ewiase enyina so. However, na oman bia no wo de ono so di ne so, right? It is a woman ne hene no otimi fight ya no konka do di wiase nyina no so na so ono so be di wiase nyina so.
Okay.
Now, Israel for no, let us make it emphatically clear, say the only time on my Israel edi we are singing answer no, just 2 times. The time of David and the time of Solomon. Asa. That time no kwa no mutimi more like conquered the world. Na a nipa free wiase ano no ho aba eho ebe honor them, right? It, there's no time na Israel for nankasa AD wiase nyina. So the question is say na wo mu ni wiase so and wo mu ni hene a and then how will they run
Yeah,
as a
omu ni
country?
wiase so. Ana obi so ni omu so. Nti.
Or hene bi any of us. But na that time the etienne say na wo ahemfo bi a omo wo ho. Yeah, say wo man no eben no a you pay homage to sao hene no. It
Okay.
is ahemfo no omo ben omo no bi. Ene sa Antiochus Epiphanes ene sa ankrofo no. No omo no was Syria. Ene wo omo so from from Egyptians no Ptolemy for no. Right? It as at the time sa revolt we koso sa antokwa we koso no. Yemfa ne say ye ni obi a odi wiase nyina so. Because Alexander the Great na ne di wiase nyina so na Daniel nkomhye no na ahini na ede ebu ama 4 horns na apie mu 4 ahini na ede apie mu sa 4 ahini no ba ko ne sa and Seleucus for na mo Syria no and Ptolemy for na mo your friend is saying Egypt no and na e wo Hades to say Cassandra ne sa ankrofo no enti no Israel for no you read much about Ptolemy's name Seleucus and I say Antiochus Epiphanes nuanom no more because there was a war between Ptolemy for no name Seleucus for ya na sa war no womo beko a they always pass through Palestine Israel for assassins because the people of Ocean map na say ka map wa na me de kire wa can you understand what I'm talking about? Say almost shemfimfim meaning say producer bit man boy with a map ye show Israel almost say almost show mumfimfim others and a epo the Mediterranean Sea I will say right and the Red Sea ewaha and a desert ewaha until the only way to get to Egypt is to pass the land of Palestine or the land of Israel Canaan for us so and the only way to go to Syria so is to pass the main reason why this Maccabees war near the Inaba and they say Antiochus for him Israel for to go and support them in the work. They don't agree. Tomo agree no. And I'm saying the say Saturday then you are going to stop you from doing or obeying your Sabbath law. We are going to stop you from obeying your God now. No. So and then the cost status our war winning. So I said.
Okay.
As at the time, no, the obi and Nivias, so but I am from Omo, etimi control because also chair. It okay say you say I want to make a say right? Now, what happened? Bioni say time wa Maccabi war no air no. Then there was a time wa na there a war between Sankrofo, even though Maccabees for no more kono. They are just fighting about a country in Canaan land no, but it does not stop the war between the Egyptians and the Syrians. So war no that all so I say and in between no almost small Israel no almost so this Syria for no so so then what happened is that almost to me AJ almost so many see all right But the war between Syria and Egypt, ended up in a way a cofa Roman for no bear. Let me explain to you what happened. Antiochus Epiphanes ne papa okoya so many places. In fact, according to history, Eka de nanko take you over the Egyptian land nina. Ena etokoni muno your friends are telling me for no. Na ohene baako oho ne yere linked to Rome for Satan na Rome nye enye eniwiase so na Rome ye almost so a small nation in Europe omudi omo ho so sabre no ahemfu bia na omo to say Julius Caesar. So what is Julius Caesar da
Annie.
Ozi kind Julius Caesar, but they are not linking it to Bible moonsep. But the truth is that Julius Caesar no ono the Rome so in fact on a binum konya no benya power to rule in Rome. It to all rule in Rome no. Ena ne linka or ya ohema no or Egypt no. Echre say that Syria for na kuntu o meboa. So ono so the troop ebeboa sa nkrofo no. Ena omo konka Syria for no. Na Syria for no return no and on the abufuo ebe to share Israel for so omo enyedoa because it's akwan no so no mo fa so ekọ mu krom. Now all those stories yentimi nkomu in detail, but the picture wadwe agina so say time Rome for no ekokon no mo boa other people to fight na them. Then they saw a way as a nation be a corner ohia power soldiers no about Rome. What I say 80 Julius Caesar or adopted Abrantebi. In fact, my penny dina me monchro or adopted Abrantebi. Abrante no adopted no. Nani dian kasa Gaius Octavia. Gaius Octavia. Ena Julius Caesar no ho oye dictator. Obey dictator na omu kan bibia wontie no. Ena ne member ne MPs ne senators wakọ ho no omu kokasa ena omu chi nukun no to omu kun no na omu sa fa omu pedi obedi ade na de obedi ade no ena omu kofa akwa bia ye friend Mark Anthony Mark Anthony no ena ka obedi Julius Caesar na de ena another group bi so sorry ya papa bi ye friend no Tiberius. In fact, later on, Neba eba be the emperor. Tiberius also fight against Mark Antony no. It the koba and say, "Omienu nyina obi antimi amedi ade no omukofa akwana Julius Caesar adopted no." Your friend no. Gaius, your friend say Octavia no. Octavio Gaius no. And our fa they adopted no ni din a friend no Julius Caesar in full name Gaius Julius Caesar Octavia is akwa no and omu yi ni say the omedi Rome eso ti ono ne time and omu timi conquer Egypt and omu conquer Syria no conquer Egypt conquer Syria and na wiase nyina ya wo there into ono the first man obedi Rome Empire no so into ono no ose oyenyame etinidin Gaius Julius Caesar no wasesa no your friend no Augustus God Augustus oyenyame into ono no time no na fe wo a wo pese uru over nation no one ne be fine 80 Herod the Great. So what Herod ye kind of din war New Testament mu no. Ono na busuafo and omo ye a link to him. to me link to him no ball mo say mayi mu na mudi saa o man so maba hene it even though onye Jew ni no oye Edomite eye your friend saying Esau asefo ni bi no mo southern side o and oyi no man be di ohene nti ono be di hene fa eye Jew for asase no eso whilst he is not a Jew whilst I won't free Jew for na him for no eye Judah abusiano won free mu
only because of his link to Augustus
only
Caesar.
because of his link to Augustus Caesar. So I say, if you are be di hene no, then they also needed Obia or ye priest. It is said they are not Joe Elkano. And Crofono, omu priest every heaven.
Aaron
priest every Aaron Busiamu. High priest no free Aaron Busiamu. But wait there, won't so a wosika bet my bede now when you know near the amount. 80 Jew for no, say okay. Rome for we can't fight them. Now they have conquered us, right? 80 year Muni Rome no only the high priest. By young man a crime and in temple on sacrifices. Because on ye Aaron ni asini. It omu you priest there. Ye a political appointment. Na Jew for no so you omu priest there o free Aaron busu animu. Entina oko New Testament mu a obeka kire say na sa abre no na Kefa anyone ayi Jonathan Kame one the count no Kayana na say one na count no
yeah Kefa any ayi
and we over Kame here there could see
Acts chapter 4 there's a name that nidin or Acts chapter 4
Acts chapter 4 mudin or and Luke so mudin
yes
and so what is such a mommy so Joe me to am so no ye a political leader yeah a political priest
so Ananias Kefa yes
so I say it is ankrofo mu baako a free abusia omutimi offer sacrifice mu baako mfiri mu but ya appoint no it is the first thing is so now the second thing is so and it say Herod abusia no so ye you omo as ahemfo na omo ehwe that area no so no ono so mpese ohene bia beba bio na wabe take over ahene ni ntino ote se yawo agenkwa juufo ehene no eno na o share enyansafo no mba ese omo kosum ni wi a omo ba omo meka nkire no so yede
onkosum ni bi
no with the intention say obekwa kokuma kwalan because on pese ohene foforo bi abe sorry ewo area ho na wabeje na hini and that is why yawu Jesus no yede na yede eko Egypt because na Herod pa kwala na yede ekuno eti Herod wuye no ono nso ma right ono nso ma chiche said the Alexander the Great ahinde no mu chiche eye 4 no Herod no so wuye no ti say uko New Testament mo ababa be take King Agrippa so I take King Agrippa da
ani
ono so free sa Herod mu ena eye Philip King Philip ono so free sa abusuan mu sa ohene na oma yetwa John the Baptist ti no ninua ene Philip said that John the Baptist catch and say untime nji wunua eyere enware no it is our story ni nyina no is telling you how Idumean ye a combination of Samaria for ne Edomite eye Esau asefo and omukabu a omonso ebenya sa ahenie na no mudi Israel for intino ote a history about the New Testament we talking about Herod na ohene Herod baby ono so de na eden Efrain no wobra Rome for conquer a no J overcoming Egypt for any Syria for no. Now the reason why the Egyptians and the Syrians were fighting no, was because of how land no. Israel for assassin no. Phoenicia ne Philistine for assassin no. No Rome for J no and almost pay on Henry the to so Herod no. But
Okay.
the Romans also brought in their governors. At the time, now what governors almost rule over the land. So that
okay,
is
so
the power a rule at that time.
so
Yeah.
as at this time, Joe, remember also, Rome being the world superpower has exerted his influence on Israel by giving them a ruler.
Yes.
And at this point, any Rome and directly or rule over Israel. Although Nensa Ewum no.
Yeah,
You bet me I can say
but I think it's Heroes were not ruling every portion of for Israel. So I see. So I say Israel. It's
okay.
kind of misnomer. He's not ruling every portion. The issue is that. Let me fill in a bit of detail here to give you an impression. You see,
Okay.
Tama Octavian no, na Julius Caesar no. Ne. Why adopting an niece? Some even call it niece. Now Julius Caesar wanted him to be the rightful heir of the throne. Sorry, Mark Antony so pet to me. There was a war between Mark Antony and Octavian. Cleopatra, Egyptian queen, also be joining, and he sided with Mark Antony. Anna Herod the Great, pledging allegiance to Octavian. When Octavian won, then he asked him, what pledging my allegiance? I didn't mean for say that Jerusalem portion. You see, Israel, Jerusalem portion will be a temple, no one near their dinner. Young function is that. So, Tama Pontius Pilate, well, that's a Pontius Pilate, didn't baby. You're not your mom here, Galilee, and that small portion, the Jerusalem, and he had a portion among the Jews are now Odiso, particularly the portion and as it kept a PF Bapa, temple, ni area near the day, and one taxes near the na efa uniaho. The honor odidi koya no so. And to also add something, see, Herod is like Bashada can to say Darius, no. Herod is like that. People think Herod is like a name. Like I say, Pharaoh. Pharaoh is not like a Otumfo, like Otumfo. So Herod is like that. There were a lot of Herods.
There are many heroes.
Heroes in the Bible. The one hand is how you say Herod Bakupa no. There are a lot of heroes I walk Bible more.
So after the time Herod the Great ever into the picture no, na the writing of the New Testament no na efitiase and no na.
No.
Well, say the tenants all kind writings are all can happen in there. Then by writing it happened later
at a later time. Yeah. Okay, the happenings of the New Testament. Yeah.
My man can kind of be Luke chapter 2. Share Luke chapter 2. Never verse 1 to 2. Who you uncle Luke chapter 3. Never 1 to 4.
Luke chapter 2, verse 1 to 2. And it came to pass in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world.
Say what is the name Caesar Augustus? Let's say at this time he is not just a leader of the Rome, he is an emperor. And say Odiwiase Ninaso. It is this time Odiwiase so naturally say we're winning the bid in their Senate. Into a winning bid no. There's a Herod so a man can say on your henny. And we're talking about the period I can was 44 BC. 44
Okay.
before the your friend saying the birth of Christ, 44 BC to 14 BC. 14 AD. 80. Sir Augustus Caesar, the first king, no, not the time near Jesus. So I say,
Okay.
sir, between a year Odi na hinenoa for about 40 years, no. Around there 4 BC, and the Jesus. 4 years to say enter the after Christ, and the Jesus. It or no, Jesus. Into no say Augustus, the decree came from Augustus. Saying, so be unco Nicronian kind.
Yan kind.
And na Mary Nymoa, or call na your friend say Bethlehem may call Jesus or but what I say now call chapter 3, verse 1. It's between chapter 2 and 3, no. Yawu Jesus oh. But nenkwala bremun sem enkwan ye kan wo ho. We don't hear about anything again. It's chapter 3 from Luke chapter 2 to chapter 3, no. So many years old. We are talking about, in fact, so many, about 10, more than 10 years.
Now, in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar.
15th year of who?
The reign of Tiberius Caesar.
Chapter 2, no say one and Caesar.
Augustus.
And a higher Tiberius.
Yeah.
And a 1 year 15 years.
Already.
Which means Augustus, no, within the 4 years, yeah, who Jesus 4 years, as I be 14 years na count, or no 18 years, yeah, who Jesus echi. And Tiberius day 15 years, Abba, and the other 18 years, no, I saying.
That's 18 and 15, 33.
33 years, right? And the Ushemupa, 33 years, yeah, in actual sense, about 29 AD 29, because the first 4 years, ABC. So I say, 29 BC, AD, and a Tiberius, a year Juma, one Ebeka, 2018 Obeka, the over year Juma.
While Annas and Caiaphas were high priests.
I think what jump kakra.
Oh, okay. So Pontius Pilate being governor of Judea, Herod being the tetrarch of Galilee, his brother Philip, and Lysanias, tetrarch of Abilene. Yeah, I think I skipped
record no the amount. Record of who the emperor is, who the governor is, who the kings are. Look more vivid evidence of all the records. Okay. It's my point in it. At this time, no, when Ebeye Juma, I feel to us all also saying, whilst Annas and Caiaphas were high priests, the word of the Lord came to who?
Son of Zachariah in the wilderness.
To John, the son of Zachariah. We're talking about John the Baptist. It's John the Baptist starting a Juma at the time when Jesus was around, your friend said, 29 years. What do I say? John a preachy or a Juma. And a John a Juma yemuno obe preachy against on any Herod, yeah, what funny near Philip now was Albon Dean was wrong. What I say, what funny near Ninuayere now warren. So all these things is to give you an idea about the whole kind New Testament. Baby, as uncle for or move free. As at this time,
yeah,
Octavia abeye emperor and way Pontius Pilate say omra sa Tiberius na emperor no Octavia wo wuko etonu wuko and the second person obeye Caesar Tiberius na Joe before me dem anu besin ma me kan we say sansem aye kan nyina nye na yabo etirimu aye kan. Hold my say these are pure historical books.
Okay.
Number one, my mema books are obey my kind no who's animal. Herodotus. There's a book called Herodotus. O search it on the net, see Herodotus ubenya a free book, a free version, PDF. A year obey my kind. Anna J. Fox. And a friend the antiquities of the Jews. And also now details of Sancrophone, eti Herod of Frehe, your friend is saying, Tiberius or your wine, how did he get there? It gives you those details. When you read these historical facts, now be read the Bible, ultimately say it is just in line with the scriptures. It is Sancrophone beso, Enna Yahu Jesus. Eti Jesus bedi the Juma aye bibia ekosu bia wo eye na brabo mu akire na wawu akọ ansa na nasuafo no abetro gospels no besa oti bibia se wa eti Matthew, Mark, Luke and John na me say he's here no at the time aye tro no na Yesu abedi the Juma wie ko.
Yeah.
So I say eti ana a preachers be can say ena Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John enka New Testament because sabreno na Jews some no eda sokoso. They just don't understand the point to say at the time I try say oh kind of time I try there. The time I try there na Christosome I started a long time ago. But those books go backward. And that is the power of inspiration. The book go backward to recount the things that happened before church started. And only the gospels, you know. So I say, it's over the New Testament, when I share these people, that is how they came about.
A very good exposition. Mumio nyina madam say. So far Makasa ediafa the Medo-Persian, Makasa ediafa the Greek. And Mobe Kasa and so ediafa I think Rome.
The Romans.
Before that, no more can we crowd for Maccabean, no Jew for no person muje esiho. That's very great. Now, Mijidi said you've touched on certain important or the relevant point within this period pertaining to the New Testament. However, say ebi wo ho a mobetimi ewo apam foforo ni ma mobetimi alenke no niema binum aye ba beti asie ye maka bebre about these kings Augustus, Caesar, Tiberius Caesar, Herod, any omam like apam foforo ni fiti asie no ahemfo abubo ndi some ekuo ahodo bi the Sadducees, the Pharisees, any binoma etete sa no nyina ye nipa free they actually sprang up during the intertestamental period. Apart from that, no say ebi wo ho a mobetumi de aka ho a in the last section for our studies today, no mema mokwan na mo de aka ho briefly, and then we are going to end our studies on the intertestamental period and continue from the New Testament authorship of the Bible.
Joe, what I will do, they say, "Meko chika krebi, na my summary be amount." Maybe Jonathan will then close us with near maybe a course or two to confirm Yanko answer. As I'm catching say, Daniel Eshen a extra diase, not Diana fa, Unyanko plan why at all. Unyanko plan why at all, say, Obebo be a baby we ask so, nor the Israel for Akonquasum. eno your friend say Babylon. But you answer na Babylon ebe di wiase so no na omom di wiase so ye from the Assyrians. Yo tieni Assyria for me different from Syria for. Omo nyepe. Nti ye wa Assyria. Assyria for no omo na de eye Northern Kingdom no konkwaso mu no. The first 10 tribes rom konkwaso mu no. Assyria for na dom koe. Ena onyankopon raise Nebuchadnezzar ene ne papa. What do I say? Ena ono ne papa e fight ya no mu bedi Assyria for no so. Na interestingly, Sarah map a wiase map no a Assyria for no e one side say and Babylonians no so another side. Omu nyina kuro Babylon. Adentira Assyria for no obu kuro ankasa pa no omu capital no Nineveh. Baby Yankopon suma Jonah so onye dey.
Jonah so onkono.
Onkono. It omu capital ne ho. But Babylon names our area ho nyina so ye one of the cities. Just that omu capital city no Nineveh. And now woman so more Babylon, almost say Babylonians no. Almost started fighting against Nineveh no. And overtake Assyria for no. And almost change the Assyrian kingdom no be no Babylonian kingdom. And almost march it down to Egypt and to Asia man on there, conquer we are seeing na. And Nebuchadnezzar be the first king. Onyame ma no asa to me so oni wiase so. And obefa Jew for ye can the Southern Kingdom no.
Okay.
Ye be for omo konkwaso mu e Babylon. Eto omo nkwaso mu no e na Nebuchadnezzar so da ya da na ekire mu se na una uye ohonimiti. Uwachi ahine foforo be sorry. Na on mahine na sorry no. Medo-Persia. Your interest in Medo-Persia for no so the same area hona said there are Nebuchadnezzar for no more Babylon in the same area Syria for no. Medo-Persia for no so the same area almost soro kakrasa. Omone Persian for no. No almost so yes, and almost overtake omo. Into almost overtake omo no omona ombe the second kingdom ruling the whole world. Yeah, Medo-Persia. And that time na Daniel ewo Babylon. It almost rule the and onyankopon ka kire say wo ahine na ye too the Persians and the Medians. Onyankopon so mu odwan. But odwan ekuta bebemienu. The Medians and the Persians. And ye wa abrekire bi a ono okuta bebem ba akopɛ. Ofri Macedonia eba and ono no be bo odwan kuye ena ode ono so ahine be den ebesi ono ne Alexander the Great no. The Alexander the Great no then ruled over the whole world. And the Bible Daniel kire say na bebe no bebu ebu a 4 kings be fru mu aba ampa ebu ye no and ebenya the Ptolemies of the Egyptians. And ebenya the Syrian for no Seleucus for no. And ebenya Cassandra ye esro for ye omo in fact Europe for no. And ebenya Antagonist so ye Asia minor area ho. 84 kings in any. These are 4 kings in and omo tokwan sa ena omo be prominent was antokwanum no Egyptians no any Syria so Ptolemy any your friend is saying Seleucus for Antiochus for no 80 omo so ntokwanum no ena koba say Rome for no omo so ahine sorry kakra ba sorry ba 80 omo time no ena tell me for no cost almost on my boy no fight against the your friend is saying Seleucus for no Syria for no. It almost fighting against almost fighting and almost say say it to me boamu fighting against we and I say momo hunya dey say right. And I say betima konka sankrofo we mu a and na ye konka mo so ka ho a and na wi ase ne afa. And omono konka sankrofo no mienu no mo fa wi ase. Enu na Rome fo be di wi ase so no. But Rome fo no di wi ase so no. And we enkom shada na share say in the days of the 4 kings, and the God of heaven shall set up a kingdom which shall not be moved. In the days of 4 kings, you know, a Roman 4 kings na. But yo, maminka we inchira bi a Jonathan de kakra so na ma ono so mrem. With him say a time came one, there was another 5th kingdom sorry. Joe, omo fight ya kodru Rome for na bobo no say. The only thing I can say ombe wura no ma take you over the town. Ba wonu say NC. Senkasa de ni si ya ka dan enkom hyeni na ka amam. Ko Nyankopon asemi o kan no ka NC. San crofo no from Carthagese. Omo ye Africans. What ba say? Omo war in between Egypt and Libya. And San crofo no so ma omo so e konka wiase nyina. The only place ana kasa omo konka Rome city na nkasa. So omo timi to Rome city ni gu a na government ni baby abi o. But you surprisingly akwa na odi omo anim no refi ni dey bia Jonathan bebo abondin. Akwa no konya koduru ho a o te se obi atiesi ni na chi a opese ogina hini. And I say obe conquer Rome. Who conquer Rome? What do we are seeing now? So, meboa. Do no I Rome now.
Osako pray na hini no.
And Osako back to the cross. Ko pray na cross ya hini no. And until when me ama me di we are seeing now so. And a man Daniel commission no. Ebe mu say Nyankopon de ahini 4 and the see ho. The Babylonian kingdom now mbe 2 Assyria for no go ye no. Medo-Persian kingdom na ebe 2 Babylonia for ahinegu ye no. Ena Greece Alexander the Great empire no so ebe 2 Medo-Persian gu ye. Ena afi Rome for also 2 Alexander the Great ahem for 4 na no mo aka no mbe 2 omgu ye no. Omo so be di wiase. That is how Daniel commission no ebe mu in most of the intertestamental period, you know, and as I name a course.
Thank you very much, Brother Jonathan. You know.
Yeah, let me add a bit of things our kind and opedino. Now I conclude with a question and I say some things in the New Testament that will help us. I bit me about what I say. Akwana now when Hannibal. Hannibal.
Okay.
Yeah. Now see, Carthage was so powerful at that time that I feel no room for now Muslim. So in all Senate meetings possibly like time I can say parliamentary sitting. Senate meeting be Catu, who was a Roman senator. They be sorry, Carthage must be destroyed. Carthage must or can I say the ritual Carthage must be destroyed. So they met at Antioch, the Battle of Antioch, the place of Mukuyano, and Hannibal destroyed them. In fact, there are 2 fierceful Roman generals, but he was able to destroy them, and Rome lost a lot of things, a lot of troops and stuff like that. But the guy stood at the front gate of the and he set off history and but he couldn't and he didn't enter. He went back and he lost the war again. In fact, he came back trying to fight, but he lost the war. Rome ruled, and that ended that empire. Carthage, almost destroyed Carthage. But military to the here say you pursue intertestamental period back when you realize that se was apam fofo ni din sometimes the Old Testament prophecies is quoted by the New Testament prophets, and I say New Testament speakers, it's not exactly the same. One more example. For instance, in the book of Acts chapter 2, so we Peter oko to Joel 2. Now, or they can say, where's a woman? Your own Bible, Joel 2. Now, call Acts 2. We realize that there's a slight difference. The question, why? You need to understand what is going on. Peter Mono were using the Septuagint, in our previous meeting discussion. They were using these Greek versions, and most of their quotations were coming from things like that. So it's a slight, and I'm saying translation. You see some slight variation from language, from the Old Testament stuff. Not because the contract, I say but simply because of during those period, intertestamental period, Nyankopon in the Hebrew language was able to be translated to a Greek version, the Septuagint, and it helped. And then the Bible helped called, and it was during those times, and the Greek language, the common Greek language, so by the language spread across the world with their Hellenistic culture, spread across. Nyankopon asem etimi eko duru wiase afana bebre. Sene Galati 4:9 mu na ye kan and say Jesus came at the rightful time. Ebra used to buy was the right time for the Church of Christ to start and for the spread of Christianity, and it confirmed that Nyankopon asem nyina wakenye no. So a fruitful study say obi bia opese ote apamfofo na se na hu nioma ekoso wiase no ene Bible mu no Bible dusua mu no ote nioma na ekoso that period of time no na abo no that's it.
Great studies, great discussion, and then we had great people with us. Yada Nyankopon as they say Oyimo these 2 weeks ya discuss the intertestamental period. Nyankopon Inshramo. Afi so ya na hwefo ene yetifo so ya damase e wo mra moje samuni ebebum asua Nyankopon ase megidi se ene ma bebre na ye bi ebetimi aye foforo amayen ya yate e wo sa adesua mienu yi mu. Na eno so ebeboa yen se yefiti yadesua na se edifa atrefo a wotre apamfoforo nwoma ahodo no ho a megidi se ya churchfo no beboa. Some of these points they raised, they may come clearer. Say you start say yadesua na so bebo modern na wa share the video link oni afoforo be share na almost so etumi aba besua niema a yesua yi bi erade onte na nimu nkyere ye nyina na o hira ye nyina oma ye nkwa na wotwe se ne ye be se hia na ye fiti the authorship of the books of the New Testament na say erade nka ye ho meda mu nyina amase bye.